Today, we're diving straight into the only unsolved case of air piracy in United States commercial aviation history. We're looking at the absolute legend of D.B. Cooper. So get ready, because we're going to piece together the clues, the suspects, and the genuinely bizarre evidence left behind in a mystery that has completely baffled investigators for over 50 years now. Okay, let's set the scene. Picture this. It's the afternoon of Thanksgiving Eve, November 24th, 1971. A quiet man wearing a trench coat and loafers boards Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 from Portland to Seattle. He settles into his aisle seat right at the rear of the Boeing 727, lights a cigarette, orders a bourbon and soda, and hands a folded note to a 23-year-old flight attendant named Florence Schaffner. That note contained a chilling message. It read, "I have a bomb in my briefcase. I want you to sit next to me." Once she sat down, the man laid out a meticulously organized list of demands. He wanted $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes, all to be delivered upon landing at SeaTac Airport. Now, as you can imagine, this set off a desperate scramble on the ground by police and airline staff. Meanwhile, up in the air, the pilots were forced to fly in circles above Seattle for 3.5 hours. They actually told the passengers there was a minor mechanical issue just to explain the delay, burning off fuel and keeping everyone perfectly calm while that ransom was being assembled. The pacing of this whole thing is just fascinating. After those tense 3.5 hours in a holding pattern, the 727 finally touched down. The hijackers' demands were met. In exchange for the cash and the parachutes, Cooper released all 36 passengers and a few crew members. The plane was quickly refueled, and Cooper ordered the remaining crew back into the sky. His new destination? Mexico, with scheduled stops in Reno and Yuma to refuel. He was basically setting the stage for one of the most daring escapes ever recorded. But, Cooper never actually made it to Reno. During that first leg of the flight, with the crew secured safely up in the cockpit, Cooper did the unthinkable. He lowered the rear stairs of the aircraft and just jumped. He vanished without a trace into a pitch-black, freezing thunderstorm, taking all the money with him. Section 2. The Scant Evidence. Let's look at what the hijacker actually left behind. What's wild here is just how little physical evidence the FBI had to work with after searching the empty plane. I mean, he even took his ransom note back, so they couldn't examine that. But based on eyewitness accounts from the flight crew, the FBI immediately compiled this highly specific profile. They were looking for a white male in his mid-40s, about 6'1", roughly 170 pounds, with an olive complexion, brown eyes, and black hair parted on the left. And, of course, a man who chain-smoked and drank bourbon. Now remember, the FBI concluded he was likely no expert skydiver. As one agent pointed out, no experienced parachutist would jump into a dark storm with 200-mile-an-hour winds wearing a trench coat and loafers. It just doesn't make sense. So the crucial point here comes down to a staggering number, 100,000. Right before jumping, Cooper tore off his cheap clip-on tie and left it on his seat. Decades later, advanced analysis revealed over 100,000 microscopic particles on that exact tie. This included rare metals, like unalloyed titanium and bismuth. This incredibly specific clue led to a lot of speculation that Cooper might have worked in a specialized manufacturing facility, perhaps even one with direct connections to Boeing itself. Section 3. The Prime Suspects. It's time to deconstruct this massive manhunt. The FBI investigated over 800 suspects over the decades, but 4 distinct profiles really stand out. Let's start with Richard McCoy, Jr. Just 5 months after D.B. Cooper's jump, McCoy pulled off an almost identical skyjacking. He hijacked a Newark flight, demanded $500,000, and parachuted from the rear stairs. He was caught and later died in a shootout after escaping prison. But even more compelling, in 2023, McCoy's children revealed they found a parachute harness and a logbook hidden in a family shed. Amateur investigators claim this specific rig is 1 in a billion, which makes McCoy an incredibly strong suspect. Next up is Sheridan Peterson. And this guy brilliantly illustrates the sheer frustration of this case. Peterson had the absolute perfect technical background. I mean, he was a former Boeing employee who literally worked in the department that wrote the manual for the 727. He was a smoke jumper, and he even worked at the exact skydiving center where Cooper's parachutes came from. But, well, look at the flaws. His physical traits completely contradicted the FBI profile. He had blue eyes, not brown, he wasn't a known smoker, and he claimed to be living in Nepal at the time of the hijacking. Let's move on to 2 other men who really build out this mystery. Robert Rackstraw was a pilot and paratrooper with a criminal record who famously faked his own death in 1978. Then there's Kenneth Christensen, who actually worked for Northwest Airlines as a mechanic and purser. The crazy thing is, the year after the hijacking, Christensen suddenly bought a house in cash. Even more intriguingly, his brother claimed Kenneth made a cryptic deathbed confession in 1994, saying, "There is something you should know, but I cannot tell you."
Moving on to Section 4, the 1980 cache discovery. We finally get a break in the case.
Despite thousands of leads, the Pacific Northwest wilderness yielded absolutely nothing for 9 long years. Following the timeline of this rotting cache, we finally see the only piece of physical evidence outside the plane ever recovered. In 1980, an 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram was digging on the banks of the Columbia River in Washington when he unearthed $5,800 in decaying $20 bills. Police checked the serial numbers, and it was a perfect match to the D.B. Cooper ransom money. Brian was allowed to keep a portion of it, and years later, he actually put some of those bills up for auction.
$37,433.38. That is the exact amount that just 15 fragmented, rotting $20 bills from that riverbank sold for at auction in 2008. It perfectly proves the enduring public obsession with this case. I mean, people are willing to pay tens of thousands of dollars just to own a decaying piece of this American legend.
Section 5, the hijacker's legacy. How one man changed aviation forever.
Even though the man himself was never brought to justice, his daring Thanksgiving Eve jump permanently altered commercial aviation. You see, in the wake of the hijacking, the Federal Aviation Administration had to make sure this could never, ever happen again. So, they mandated the installation of a device appropriately named the Cooper Van. It's a small mechanical latch fitted to the outside of Boeing 727s that specifically prevents those rear stairs from being opened mid-flight. Thanks to this simple piece of metal, no one will ever be able to replicate D.B. Cooper's specific skyjacking technique.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, lingering question. Did he actually survive the jump? Could a middle-aged man in loafers and a trench coat truly survive a 200-mile-an-hour wind plummet into a pitch-black thunderstorm? Or did D.B. Cooper take the ultimate secret to his grave, leaving us with nothing but microscopic titanium particles, a few rotting $20 bills, and the greatest unsolved mystery in the history of the skies? Think about all the evidence we've covered today and let that mystery sink in. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.